Yeah, right there lads, Aggressively British here. Last time I took a look at Sonic's first foray into the third dimension, and yeah, it wasn't very good. In fact, it was so that the developers made a way to abuse the game to beat it. Observe. So as with basically all of its games at this point in history, Sega immediately started trying to make an 8-bit conversion of this game for its handheld system, the Game Gear. How well did that go for them? I've already kind of answered that for Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, but I intend to do the same for these next two games, Sonic Labyrinth and Sonic Blast. Let's get into it.
Sonic 3D Blast, also known as Sonic 3D Flicky's Island outside of North America, was not a very good game. In fact, it's by far the worst game that I've reviewed so far. So God only knows what the nut jobs over at Sega were thinking when they decided to make an 8-bit conversion of this.
Pretty sure at least a few of these had some role in it.
Instead of trying to port Sonic 3D Blast directly to the Game Gear, which would have been an impossible feat, they decided to split the two core appeals of the game into two separate games. Sonic Labyrinth would share the gameplay style of 3D Blast, that being an isometric 3D collectathon, and Sonic Blast would share the pre-rendered sprites that 3D Blast had, but putting them into a classic 2D platformer. Now this seems like a rather good compromise, and on paper I'd agree. However, is their execution any better than their 3D father? Let's find out. Sonic Labyrinth was originally released in the UK, which I'm pretty sure is a definite first for the Sonic series, in October 1995 for the Sega Game Gear. Sonic Blast was released onto the same platform in November 1996. Notably, there was a version of Sonic Blast released on the Master System in 1997, but that was only released in Brazil, and I'm fairly sure it's not official, despite being licensed by Tectoy, the Brazilian distributor of the Master System. I don't know, it's confusing.
Now I'm not really used to reviewing two games at once, so I'm going to do them one after another. Let's start with Sonic Labyrinth.
So what is the story of Sonic Labyrinth? None of this is explained in the game, but more or less I'm pretty sure the story is that while Sonic was asleep, Robotnik stole Sonic's shoes that made him run as fast as he does. Now I'm pretty sure Sonic's speed and cannon was actually a result of a lab experiment gone awry, but we'll skip over that bit of retconning. The Sonic series is no stranger to that after all. In their place, Robotnik places them with a different pair of shoes that make Sonic agonisingly slow. This is probably Robotnik's first genuinely good idea, since Sonic's greatest weapon, apart from his frustratingly sarcastic demeanour, is his speed. I don't know why Sonic can't just take off these shoes and move around like normal, but...
Oh god, okay, now I see why.
These shoes also prevent Sonic from jumping, so either these shoes have some sort of magical curse on them, or they're heavier than your average merkin in a Walmart.
Now with the story out of the way, let's get into the graphics.
The graphics kind of resemble those of Sonic 3D Blast, only all the sprites used are 2D instead of being pre-rendered 3D models. Each zone, or labyrinth, has its own unique look, or more accurately, they have a different colour filter over them. To give the devs some credit here, there's not really much that they could have done to make each zone feel unique from each other, considering the hardware that they were working with. So the fact that they could, at the very least, make each zone somewhat visually distinct is commendable. One thing that is rather notable about Labyrinth's graphics though is the fact that they could legitimately give someone a fucking seizure. I'm not going to show it here, but if you pick up a power-up of any kind, the background starts to flash rapidly. I guess this couldn't have been that big of an issue on original hardware since the screen is hard enough to see on the original Game Gear anyway, but when you get into emulation territory, such as what I'm doing right now, it becomes a much bigger problem. So if you do have any conditions that make you vulnerable to flashing lights, then I'd say avoid this game like the plague.
Unfortunately, the music isn't much better.
Although not as likely to leave you with a seizure, the game's soundtrack might very well leave you with a bit of a headache. The soundtrack mainly consists of high-pitched bleeps and bloops that the Master System and Game Gear was somewhat notorious for. With the majority of these tracks there's hardly any semblance of a melody. It just sounds like someone hooked up a keyboard to a Game Gear and then proceeded to smash it into little bits. I'm just gonna say that it's really sad when a game's soundtrack peaks at its options menu theme.
And so now I've got the sound and graphics out of the way, let's get into the gameplay.
The main goal of this game is to go around each of the levels finding 3 keys and bring them back to the goal door. Why the fuck the key needs 3 doors to open, I have no idea, but I'm willing to overlook that since this is a game in which a platforming icon from the 90s can't even bloody jump, so I think my priority should be elsewhere. As I mentioned earlier, Sonic has been equipped with the most unruly shoes in existence, so his regular walking speed has been castrated beyond belief. He moves in this game with just about the same grace as the wheelie bin outside my house. Thankfully, or rather unthankfully, Sonic still retains the ability to do his trademark spin dash, and holy fuck is it a lot more effective in this game than it's been in any other game before. By that I mean it's a lot better at flinging Sonic around the level like a fucking pinball. This is both a blessing and a curse. Mostly a curse. While you can move around the level with considerable speed, that's at the cost of both seeing and controlling where you're headed. That's because whenever Sonic makes contact with a wall while in a spin dash in this game, instead of slamming into it and coming to a stop like he should, he instead bounces off it like the entire wall is made out of trampolines. To make matters worse, you can barely control Sonic while he's in this state. It's almost like your button presses are just mere suggestions, whispers of where Sonic should go, but the game just ignores them until it's finished treating Sonic like a pinball. But, just as a little piss-soaked cherry on the top of this shit sundae, the camera just can't keep up with Sonic. This just makes the already disorientating isometric labyrinthine level design even more disorienting. While we're on the topic of level design, let's talk about that for a second. Remember how in Sonic Blast there were certain parts of the game that would force you to do precision platforming? Well, take that, bit crush it to hell, and dial it up by 100 notches. While there's no real precision platforming in this game, there are still some platforming elements in it. For example, in the second zone, there's these jet streams that push you up to higher platforms. The only problem I have with this is that there's barely any visual distinction between something that's above and something that's on the same level as you. But I'm willing to shrug this off as a product of the limited hardware it's been built for. The game itself is relatively short, with only 4 zones separating the 4 acts. The first 3 acts are the Labyrinth key hunting that I've just described, and the last act is a special stage of such, with Sonic rolling down a slope collecting rings. After collecting at least 100 rings, the slide will end and Sonic will land in a hole conveniently labelled boss, just so you know where you're going. You'll then face off against a boss, surprisingly.
Now to this point I'd usually take a deeper dive into each of the zones, but I'm not going to do that here. One, because this game is so repetitive and the only thing that really changes between the zones is the look of them. And 2, I'm reviewing 2 games here, and I don't really want to make this a century long. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give my overall opinions on Sonic Labyrinth and then move on to Sonic Blast.
Overall, Sonic Labyrinth is certainly different, let's just say. The controls, I'd say, are a baby step up from Sonic 3D, having the exact opposite problem as them, with Sonic 3D's controls being too fast and slippery, and Labyrinth's controls being somehow both too slow and too fast. The level design is bland overall, with each level just being a confusing as fuck maze with an underwhelming boss at the end of each zone. The music is at best forgettable and at worst as ear-piercing as Wing Fortress Zone Act 2 in Sonic & Knuckles. So what's my final judgment? It's bad for a Sonic game. If you dislike a good brain teaser, there's definitely better options out there, but I'd say it's worth a play just to see how bad 3D Sonic can get.
Speaking of 3D Sonic, let's get right into Sonic Blast.
My god, this game is fucking terrible. I'm just gonna make it clear straight from the gate that I fucking despise this game. Why exactly I hate it so much, I'll get into as I get into this game. First off, the story. The most explanation we get in the story is that. Yep, that's it. That is literally the only glimpse of the story we get. A fucking 3-second long cutscene. To give it some credit, that's still more than the original Sonic the Hedgehog gave us. Basically, Robotnik decided to say, fuck it, if I can't have these Chaos Emeralds, no one can, and shattered the Master Emerald into a bunch of little pieces, and now it's your job as the designated Chaos Emerald janitor to find these pieces and stop Robotnik from destroying the world, I guess.
Now let's stop dilly-dallying and get right into this heaping pile of shit.
The graphics are to be honest, really f***ing impressive for the Game Gear. The game uses pre-rendered 3D sprites, kinda similar to the Donkey Kong Land games on the Game Boy. It's actually extremely impressive to see it even running on a Game Gear. Just as a quick side note, there was a semi-official version of Sonic Blast released on the Master System. By that I mean it was only released in Brazil, and it was released by an official distributor of the Master System in Brazil, Tectoy. It's basically the exact same as the Game Gear version, but with slightly less screen crunch. The sound is not as impressive, it's just your typical 8-bit Sonic tunes, nothing special. I'm just going to say when the Act Star theme is one of the most memorable themes in your game, then you know you've done something horribly wrong. On the surface, Sonic Blast is your typical 2D Sonic platformer. You run from one side of an act to get to the signpost. On the third act of each zone, you encounter the big bad Dr. Robotnik himself. Added to that, there's also 2 different characters you can choose from, Sonic and Knuckles. But from what I can tell, there's no stage changes for Knuckles to accommodate his glide ability. So he's more or less just Sonic with a worthless ability slapped on. There's a total of 5 zones in this game, or 6 if you want to be weird and count the special stages as a zone like the Sonic Wiki does, making this one of the shortest Sonic games out there. And thank f*** it's as short as it is, because this game is fucking awful. Now this game is a technical achievement, I'm not denying that. In that vein, it's much like its 3D Mega Drive counterpart, but a lot more impressive since it's got 3D pre-rendered sprites running on what is essentially a beefed up potato. But being a technical achievement alone is not enough to save this shit show of a game. The main reason this game is so bad is, just like 3D Blast, its controls. They are fucking awful. I have no idea how you can fuck up the controls of a 2D Sonic game, but they managed to do it. Not only did they manage to make Sonic feel sluggish, and therefore make all the loops a chore to get past, they also make what should be a fun gliding ability absolutely insufferable. It's quite a work of art how much they were able to fuck up Sonic like this. Now, usually I'd excuse this, saying that this is probably the best that they could have done on the hardware, but other 8-bit Sonic games exist. Although each of these games have their own problems, which are outlined in each of their individual videos, at least these games actually felt like Sonic games as opposed to fucking slideshows. If you want to fully understand how rubbish this game is, then play it for yourself, but don't say I didn't warn you.
Now I'm debating whether or not I should go more into depth for this game or not. Nah.
Well, that's it?
Yep.
You're not actually going to end off the video like this, are you?
Yep.
Well, just seems a bit lazy, doesn't it?
Don't make me come back over there, bitch.
Oh, okay, I'll be good.
Yeah, you better be good.